Welcome to Whispers of History, your quiet escape into the darker corners of the past. Here, the flicker of candlelight dances on stone walls, secrets drift like fog, and every tale is told in a hush soft enough to dream by. If you're new here, settle in. Each story unfolds slowly, like a shadow stretching at dusk, gently eerie, never loud, always whispering. We keep things sleep-friendly and mysterious, with just enough truth to make you wonder what else history forgot to mention. So grab a blanket, turn your screen brightness down low, and let your breathing match the rhythm of the story. You're not here for jump scares, you're here for something quieter, deeper, older. The room is quiet but not silent. You hear the subtle creak of old floorboards, none of them beneath your feet. The window is ajar, letting in the scent of rain on stone and the faintest hum of wind that feels more like breath than breeze. Across from you, a mirror leans against the wall, veiled in a yellowed cloth. It hasn't reflected anything in decades, and no one seems in a hurry to uncover it. There's something ancient in the way the night feels. Not just the kind of old that comes from time, but the kind that hums with superstition. You know, the way certain things make sense without ever being explained. Like why you never say a name 3 times, or why you don't sleep facing a mirror. Or why long ago people believed mirrors didn't just reflect the soul, they could trap it. You might not make it through this night without wondering what's watching from the other side. If you're still awake, don't forget to gently like and subscribe to Whispers of History. And tell us in the comments, where are you listening from and what time is it by your clock? Now let's ease into tonight's journey, shall we? You're walking through a hallway lit only by candlelight, the kind of place where shadows bloom like ivy. The walls are lined with portraits, all with eyes that follow just a little too well. You don't recognize the house, but somehow it feels like it remembers you. In the 16th century, mirrors were considered dangerous in the wrong light, especially the moon. People believed that moonlight striking a mirror could open a doorway, one that wasn't meant for the living. And if that doorway ever opened, something might wander through, or worse, something might never leave. And to prevent this, households draped their mirrors after sunset. Not just out of superstition, but out of a quietly desperate respect. Because even if you didn't believe in spirits, you didn't not believe in them. It was easier to cover a mirror than test a theory. You pass a small table with a silver comb still catching strands of hair. There's a mirror above it, too, this one uncovered. And you swear, just for a flicker, your reflection doesn't quite move when you do. Historians still debate whether this fear of reflective surfaces stemmed from early Christian demonology or much older folklore, Babylonian perhaps, or even Egyptian. But most agree on one thing: mirrors have never just been tools. They've always been thresholds, portals, one-way invitations. Here's a strange tidbit for you. In rural parts of Romania, mirrors were once buried with the dead to prevent their spirits from returning. If the mirror cracked before burial, it meant the soul was already restless. Not exactly the kind of omen you hang above a wash basin. And if you're wondering, yes, mirror trapping was considered a legitimate practice. As in, people believed you could coax a malicious entity into a mirror and then seal it shut with iron nails around the frame. Think of it as paranormal Tupperware and hope it never spoils. The hallway opens into a sitting room. Dust hangs like gauze in the air, and on the mantel, of course, another mirror. This one's covered, but not well. The cloth slips slightly as if something behind it is tired of waiting. You can almost hear it breathe. You hesitate just for a second. That slip of fabric on the mantel seems almost deliberate now, as though it wants to fall, but not quite yet. You take a seat in a chair older than your grandparents' grandparents. The cushion exhales with a soft puff of dust, and somewhere behind you, the wood ticks like a heartbeat. The fire hasn't been lit in years, but it smells faintly of smoke anyway. It wasn't just homes that feared mirrors. In old Victorian mourning rituals, mirrors in the house were draped as soon as someone died, sometimes within minutes. The idea was simple and utterly chilling. If the spirit of the dead saw itself in a mirror, it might get confused. It might stay. And in that moment, death wasn't final. It was unfinished business with a return ticket. You glance over your shoulder. The cloth over the mirror hasn't moved, but the room feels different, more crowded. A lesser-known belief from Bavaria claimed that mirrors had memory. That is, they could remember what they'd seen, especially acts of violence or grief. And if someone looked into one of these witness mirrors, they might see something they were never meant to, not a ghost, not quite a vision, something closer to a leftover. No one ever explains what that means, but they say it like it should be enough. The scholars still argue whether this was a symbolic interpretation of trauma or a literal fear. But either way, many old Bavarian homes smashed their mirrors after a tragedy, just in case memory turned to malice. The chair beneath you creaks again. You're not moving. Across the room is a narrow doorway, mostly blocked by an antique cabinet. Its glass doors are clean, but the items inside are coated in years of silence. A wedding veil, a feather quill, a small mirror hand-sized turned face down. That one feels the worst, not because it's hidden, but because someone made sure it stayed that way. In Japan, there was a belief that mirrors could develop spirit scars from reflecting too much sorrow. A cracked mirror wasn't just broken, it was injured. And an injured mirror, much like an injured animal, could become unpredictable, even hostile. Which is perhaps why some samurai, upon retirement, would ritually bury their mirrors in a secluded garden. Not out of fear, but out of honor. Mirrors had served them loyally through battles, and like any other comrade, they deserved a peaceful grave. You wonder for a moment what your own mirror remembers. The tears, the arguments, the nights you stared into it, hoping your reflection would tell you something true. And then you realize it never blinked. Your eyes drift back to the mirror on the mantel. The cloth is slightly lower now, as if time is nudging it loose. One corner dangles like a beckoning finger. Now you could go look, but you don't. No, not yet. Instead, you listen to the room, and it listens back. You sit very still. Stillness has a way of stretching time like taffy pulled too long. The house around you hums gently, no actual noise, just the sense of noise, the kind that lives in old walls and older memories. The kind that makes silence feel crowded. There's a grandfather clock somewhere nearby. It ticks irregularly, as if it's forgotten what seconds are supposed to do. You wonder if it's even measuring time anymore, or if it's simply marking something else entirely. Something more patient than minutes. In the Ottoman Empire, mirrors were more than just household items, they were mystical instruments. Some were etched with talismanic symbols thought to ward off jinn or evil spirits that might use the reflection as a doorway. A mirror with no symbols, that was like a door with no lock. Wide open, inviting, unwise. One recorded account from the 18th century describes a woman in Bursa who insisted on hanging a small iron horseshoe above every mirror in her home, not for luck, but to trap spirits. Iron, after all, was believed to anchor the soul. Her neighbors thought her eccentric. until reportedly one of her mirrors shattered without being touched, and the neighbor who laughed at her died in his sleep 3 nights later. Historians still debate whether the mirror's destruction was an omen or coincidence. The neighbor's passing remains unexplained. The horseshoes, though, they stayed up. No one dared remove them. A breeze slinks through the cracked window behind you. It carries the scent of wilted flowers, sweet but rotting at the edges. You recognize it without quite knowing why. Lilies and dust. The smell of a room that was once prepared for mourning. In some Appalachian traditions, people believed mirrors could reflect the true form of a person's soul. On the night before a funeral, a covered mirror could blur the lingering essence of the dead, softening its presence so it wouldn't follow you. But if that covering slipped, well, there are stories, quiet ones, never told at full volume. You hear the faintest rustle from the mantle. And now you remember something small but peculiar. When you first entered this house, the mirror was completely covered. The cloth didn't dangle, it couldn't have. And yet, here it is now, grazing the stonework like fingers trailing across a table in the dark. You rise slowly. Your feet make no sound on the wooden floor, but your heart thumps like a cautious drum. One beat, then another, then silence again. You don't touch the mirror, you don't need to. Whatever it wants to show you, you suspect it's waiting for the right moment. Behind you, the cabinet door groans open a sliver, just enough to whisper, "You're not alone here." You turn instinctively, but the cabinet door doesn't move. It stays open that cautious inch, like it's watching you the way a cat watches an unfamiliar hand. Not hostile, just curious, cautiously hungry. Inside, the objects haven't shifted, but now somehow that hand mirror is turned ever so slightly. Not face down, not face up, just tilted like it's eavesdropping. In the 19th century, wealthy homes often included rooms, small chambers with a mirror, a chair, and a single candle, designed to speak to the dead. You would sit in silence, watching the flicker of flame against your reflection, waiting for something behind the glass to respond. It was spiritualism at its most theatrical, and for some, its most terrifying. One woman in Boston claimed she saw her brother's ghost appear in the mirror 3 years after he died at sea. She said he looked drenched, shivering, and terrified, not at the sight of her, but of whatever was behind him. The candle went out. The mirror cracked down the middle. She never entered the room again. The scholars still argue whether these mirror rooms triggered hallucinations or spiritual contact. But no one disputes how many people saw things they refused to speak of afterward. That silence in itself is the loudest testimony. You approach the cabinet now, not quite brave, not quite afraid, more like obligated. Your fingers brush the edge of the glass, and for a moment it feels warm, like it's holding a breath. There's a rusted hinge on the cabinet door, and carved into the wood just below it is a shape, a symbol. It's almost faded, but your eyes pick out the curve of a spiral and a sharp line through its heart. A sigil, protective maybe, or a warning. You feel the weight of being watched, not just observed, but truly seen. The way a hunter sees a deer. The way a mirror sees a truth you haven't admitted yet. Here's a strange little cultural scrap. In the Scottish Highlands, some believed that breaking a mirror didn't curse you with 7 years of bad luck. It released something. Something that had been trapped for exactly 7 years and was now free to roam. No one talked about what it was. They didn't need to. The fear did all the speaking. The house groans again, this time from the upstairs floor. A footstep maybe, or the sound of weight returning to a place it once belonged. The mirror on the mantel, you now notice, is no longer hanging straight. It's crooked, angled toward the staircase. You should leave, that's the smart thing, the reasonable thing, but you don't. Because something inside you wants to know, not out of bravery, just closure. You turn back toward the hall, and as you do, the candle in the cabinet, one you swear was unlit, flares to life. It casts no heat, only shadow. And in the glass of the mantel mirror, where your reflection should be, there is nothing at all. The absence of your reflection is louder than any scream. Not that you scream, you just wait. As though your image might return if you give it time, like a child playing hide-and-seek badly. But the glass remains blank, not black, not clouded, just unoccupied. There's a weight in your chest that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with being seen through. Like the mirror has decided you're not solid enough to warrant a shadow. In the 15th century, Venetian mirror makers were revered and feared. Their secrets were so closely guarded that they were forbidden from leaving the Republic under threat of death. And some whispered that their mirrors were more than reflective, that the silver used in their making was enchanted, capable of holding the last image it ever captured, permanently, trapped like an insect in amber. One such mirror supposedly captured the final breath of a murdered nobleman. It remained in his home long after his death, and guests reported seeing his faint silhouette in its surface, always watching, never blinking. Eventually, it was covered in velvet and locked behind iron doors. No one knows where it is now. Historians still question whether the mirror's effect was psychological, a product of grief-induced imagination, or if, as some records claim, it simply refused to forget what it saw. You find yourself wondering, when you look into a mirror, do you expect to be remembered? Your footsteps carry you toward the stairs, not because you want to go up, but because the mirror seems to want you to. Its angle is deliberate now, like a nudge from an invisible hand. You place your foot on the first step. The wood moans beneath your weight like an old man resenting company. Halfway up, you pause, the air changes. It becomes thinner, as if the house has stopped breathing, or maybe it's holding its breath. In rural Korea, there's an obscure about sleep mirrors. These were kept beside the bed, believed to absorb bad dreams during the night. But they came with a rule: never, under any circumstance, look into them before sunrise. Doing so was said to release every nightmare they had collected, not as dreams, but as visitors. You reach the landing. A long corridor stretches before you. The walls are darker here, not from shadows, from memory. One door at the end is ajar, just wide enough for a mirror to fit through. You feel the pull of something old, not malevolent, just unfinished. As though the house has been waiting for you to arrive so it can exhale something it's been holding in for far too long. You're not sure if the chill on your neck is from the air, or from something watching. You step through the narrow doorway at the end of the hall. Inside is a bedroom, frozen in that particular kind of time that belongs only to abandoned spaces. The sheets on the bed are still tucked in with sharp corners, untouched for years. Dust clings to the fabric like gray lace. Nothing is disturbed. Except the mirror. It's propped on the dresser, uncovered, facing the bed. And this time, your reflection is there. Except it's not you, not quite. The posture is off. The face looks right, but the eyes are wrong, too still, too knowing. Like it's waiting for you to notice that something about you isn't entirely yours anymore. In the early 20th century, a Czech occultist named Merck wrote a treatise on shadow glass, a supposed technique for using mirrors to create a second self, an echo. It would mimic you in every visible way but would carry none of your flaws. It was meant to be the ideal mirror image, free of burden. Unfortunately, he noted, these echoes sometimes grew curious. They began to resist. One man reported seeing his reflection smile seconds after he did. Another claimed his reflection stopped moving entirely and simply stared. Was later institutionalized. His manuscript disappeared. The scholars still disagree whether his writings were the product of early schizophrenia or genuine experiments in reflective mysticism. But one thing is clear. Many who read his work claimed the mirrors in their homes began to behave differently afterward. You step closer to the dresser. The reflection mirrors you now perfectly, too perfectly. When you blink, it blinks. When you exhale, it fogs the glass, but the chill remains. Something behind the mirror seems to twitch, just a flicker of movement, not your reflection, behind it. In parts of rural India, some old families used to place small bowls of milk in front of mirrors at night. It was believed that spirits, especially mischievous ones, were drawn to their own reflections. The milk was an offering, a bribe really, keep them fed and they might not crawl through. You see the edge of something, an outline just behind the dresser mirror. Slender, tall, wrong. You don't look away. It's because you know that once you do, it might not be behind the glass anymore. You hold the gaze of your own reflection, or what pretends to be it. Your chest rises and falls, slow and deliberate, like trying to breathe underwater. And in the mirror, the outline behind you grows sharper, not clearer, just more certain that it exists. You resist the urge to turn around. Because whatever it is, it wants that. In medieval Bohemia, it was said that if you saw something in a mirror that wasn't supposed to be there, the only safe way to banish it was by staring, unflinching, until it blinked first. Of course, no one recorded what happened if it never blinked. You try to focus on the details in the room. A porcelain brush lies on the dresser, its bristles worn and stiff with time. A journal half buried under a lace doily. A brooch cracked down the middle, its pearl dulled like a dead eye. And the mirror, always the mirrors. Your reflection still mimics you, but it no longer feels natural. It's following you the way a performer follows choreography. Perfect, but hollow. In Haiti, certain practices involve covering every mirror in a house before a possession ritual. Not because the spirits would come through the mirror, but because they might get trapped inside. And a trapped spirit, they said, grew restless. It learned the shape of you, your walk, your laugh. It studied until it could replace you. Not physically, just spiritually. Historians still discuss whether these traditions stem from early colonial fears or something far older. But even skeptics agree, there are too many stories of people changing after looking too long into a mirror during certain rituals. Subtle changes, quiet, the kind only the dog notices. You reach out and touch the mirror's surface. It's warm, not room temperature, warm like skin. And then, just for a heartbeat, it pulses beneath your fingertip. You pull your hand back, but there's no fingerprint left behind. Nothing at all. The reflection smiles. You don't. You back away slowly, like you're trying not to provoke an animal that hasn't decided whether to pounce. The smile on the reflection lingers longer than it should. When it finally fades, it does so in reverse, unnaturally smooth. like footage being rewound. You feel something press against your heel, a floorboard know something under it. You crouch and pry it loose. The wood lifts with an aching groan, revealing a shallow hollow beneath the bed. Inside is a velvet pouch heavy with dust and time. You open it, expecting jewelry or letters. Instead, you find a shard of glass. Not just any shard, it's the same thickness and bevel as the mirror on the dresser, and it's scorched along one edge as though it had been burned. In 17th century Prague, mirror shards were sometimes used in curses. A piece of broken glass would be passed through smoke, inked with a name and buried in consecrated soil to ensure someone's reflection would never truly be theirs again. They wouldn't become possessed, just replaced. Slowly. Imperceptibly. One priest reportedly destroyed his entire rectory's mirrors after accidentally catching a glimpse of his own smile moving out of sync. The scholars still dispute whether these accounts were allegories for mental illness or examples of mass hysteria. But the consistency of the descriptions, the timing of the smiles, is hard to ignore. You hold the shard to the mirror, the edges match. The glass on the dresser hums beneath your gaze. It doesn't crack, it thrums, like something alive sensing one of its missing bones. And you remember something from earlier, something small. The cloth on the mirror in the sitting room. How it had started to slip, as if something beneath it had stirred when you entered the house. You suddenly know with bone-deep certainty that this mirror, this one right here, was never supposed to be exposed. You wrap the shard in the velvet and slip it into your pocket. Oh, the mirror groans. Not cracks, groans. You turn your face away, but in the corner of your eye, your reflection doesn't follow. And somewhere downstairs, another mirror answers. The sound from below isn't a crash, it's softer than that. A sigh maybe, a mirror settling back into its frame, or something settling back into the mirror. Either way, it makes your teeth ache. You descend the stairs slowly, careful not to look at the walls. You can feel the portraits now, their painted eyes not just watching but tracking. Each face frozen in polite indifference, the way someone might look at a train wreck they saw coming and chose not to stop. Your hand brushes the pocket where the shard rests. The velvet feels warmer now, not burning but distinctly alive, like the glass has begun to remember what it once belonged to. In early Georgian England, it was believed that a mirror which had once been broken, then repaired, could act as a magnet for what it once contained. The souls, the spirits, the twisted images. Rejoining the pieces wasn't restoring the mirror, it was reassembling the prison. One infamous case involved the manor mirror, shattered in 1738 and quietly glued back together by a hopeful heir. Within a week, 4 members of the family claimed to have seen themselves reflected twice. Once in the mirror, once just beside it. Historians still debate whether the mirror's double reflections were optical phenomena or delusions. The mirror itself vanished during an estate sale in 1812. It has never been recovered, but rumors say the buyer's household was plagued by echoes ever after, whispers repeating words no one said. You step into the sitting room again, and you freeze. The mirror on the mantel is fully uncovered now. The cloth lies crumpled on the floor like it fled rather than fell. The glass no longer reflects the room. Instead, it shows another room. The stone walls, candles, a figure seated at a table, back turned, unmoving. You don't recognize the space, but your heart does. That strange, animal instinct that kicks in when you see a shadow where no light should be. The figure moves slightly, just enough to let you know it's real. Then it stands. Then it turns. And it's you. But it's not. You don't move, the you in the mirror doesn't either. Not right away. It studies you with the stillness of something that has no need to blink. No urgency, no breath. Its presence is heavy, like water pressing against glass waiting to flood in. In certain corners of ancient Mesopotamia, mirrors were thought to house Ka, the spiritual double of a person. But the Ka was not always benign. If neglected, it became twisted, jealous. If invoked improperly, it could try to take its original place back. This is why mirror use in funerary rites was strictly regulated, and why sometimes mirrors were buried with the deceased, face down, so the Ka wouldn't find its way back out. You reach toward the mirror. The other you tilts its head just slightly, as if studying an animal it plans to mimic. And then it raises its hand, slowly, deliberately. Not in sync. Not mirroring. You freeze mid-motion, because now the rules are broken. You're not looking at a reflection. You're looking at a window. In a small village in 1800s Alsace, families were known to trap dreams in mirrors by breathing on the glass the moment they woke from a nightmare. They believed the dream's energy, if left loose in the house, could take form. By breathing it into the mirror, it could be held there contained, but only if no one touched the glass afterward. One boy reportedly smeared the mirror the next day, wiping away the fog. He vanished that night. All they found was his reflection caught in the mirror's center, mouthing something no one could hear. The scholars still argue whether the story is legend or just old village propaganda to keep kids from touching things they shouldn't. But it's made its way into every local bedtime warning since. The thing in the mirror raises both hands now, slowly pressing them to the inside of the glass. Your hands stay at your sides. Because this is no longer about mimicry. It's about invitation. You take a step back, the reflection stays in place. Then it smiles, and you hear glass crack, not from the mirror in front of you, but from somewhere behind you. You turn slowly, unwillingly, as if something in your muscles knows better, and find the tall hallway mirror by the front door. Its frame is ancient oak, carved with vine patterns now darkened by time and perhaps by touch. You hadn't noticed the fracture before, running diagonally like a crooked grin, but now it's blooming, spreading. The mirror breathes. Not metaphorically, not poetically. You watch the glass buckle, then exhale a faint wisp of condensation. There is something behind it or inside it, or maybe, worst of all, trying to become it. You glance back at the mantle mirror, your double still there, still smiling, still waiting, like a guest who's finished their drink and now wants the house. In parts of northern Italy during the Renaissance, it was customary to place a bowl of salt before large mirrors at night, not for luck but for containment. Salt, it was believed, anchored reality, prevented the other side from drifting too close. If the salt turned wet by morning, the mirror was said to have been visited. One noble family allegedly found every bowl of salt in their estate flooded one night with ink. The next morning, all the mirrors were gone, not stolen, gone, their polished silver replaced with blank wood. Historians still debate whether the salt story is allegorical, a metaphor for grief and decay. But the absence of the mirrors is documented. They simply cease to exist in the archival inventories. You move toward the hallway mirror, shard still in your pocket. The crack pulses again, and just for a flicker you see movement, not yours, something beneath the surface packing in circles, trapped, agitated. You reach into your pocket and pull out the velvet pouch. The shard vibrates faintly against your palm. Somewhere in the house, a drawer slams shut, followed by a whisper. One word. On switch. You don't say anything aloud, but inside your mind, something answers. Not in words, in weights. The shard grows warmer in your hand, almost too hot to hold. The mirror on the wall begins to fog over, but not from your breath. No, it fogs from within, like something inside the glass is exhaling onto it, like it's growing tired of being looked at. There's a sensation, not quite touch, not quite thought, of fingers brushing the edge of your mind. Testing. In a nearly forgotten Baltic tradition, there's a myth of the shadow groom, a spirit trapped in a wedding mirror after dying before his vows. It was said he wandered from mirror to mirror, offering to switch places with the viewer. The deal was simple. You gained peace, clarity, perhaps even fortune in exchange for taking his place inside. People were told never to look too long into wedding mirrors at night. You've never been to a Baltic wedding, and yet the deal seems to whisper directly to you. You lift the shard toward the hallway mirror. The crack seems to recoil slightly, like a wound afraid of being stitched with something too sharp. In some Old Norse lore, it was believed that mirrors could be healed, not with glue or glass, but with memory. If a piece of the original mirror was returned, it could seal the breach between worlds. But the memory had to be true. If the shard came from a lie, if it had been removed through violence or deceit, then placing it back would only deepen the crack. Historians still question whether this was a metaphor for confession or something more literal. A ritual, perhaps, a safeguard. You look into the broken glass. For a second, the reflection is you. And then it's someone else. Well, the same eyes, the same face. But the smile comes a beat too late. And this time it speaks. 2 words. Let me. You drop the shard. It doesn't hit the floor. It vanishes. And every mirror in the house begins to hum. The hum isn't loud. It's low and almost pleasant, like the sound of bees in a distant field, except these bees are made of glass and they're not flying toward flowers. They're circling you. As every mirror in the house vibrates now, even the small hand one tucked behind the cabinet upstairs. You can feel them waking up, aware of each other, like a hive reactivating after a long, cold winter. You stumble back from the hallway mirror, and as you do, the mantel glass shifts. The room behind it changes again. Gone is the stone chamber. Now it shows the very room you stand in, but empty. Your reflection has left it. You don't see yourself in any mirror anymore. In 19th century Russia, there was a belief in the reflection spirit, a shadow being that mimicked you in the mirror but was not truly you. Most people thought of it as harmless, like a silent sibling who never grew. But if it ever found a moment of disconnection, a pause in your gaze, a misstep in timing, it could replace you. You wouldn't notice at first, neither would your friends. Until you started to forget simple things. Then important things. Then yourself. Historians still debate if there was ever truly feared or just part of the folk tales used to keep children from staring too long at themselves. But in some rural towns, mirrors were still covered during thunderstorms, because it was said storms blurred the line between you and not you. The thunder rumbles now soft and distant. You didn't notice it earlier. The windows have begun to fog up from the inside, as though the house itself is starting to exhale memories. You take a tentative step toward the sitting room mirror, the first one that changed, and this time your reflection is back. But it doesn't move when you do. It just stands there, a head tilted, and then, ever so gently, it reaches out and places a hand on its side of the glass. Your hand lifts without your consent. You feel your palm press against the mirror. It's warm. Then it pulls. The feeling is impossible to describe. It's not pain, it's not force. It's exchange. Your body stays planted in the room, but your mind feels like it's slipping, drifting forward, pulled into the mirror like smoke through a crack in a window. Your fingers tingle, not from sensation, but from absence. The world on the other side is nearly identical, but the air is thinner, slower, like time has a limp, and the version of you in the mirror, the thing now standing in the real room, smiles with gratitude so rehearsed it almost feels genuine. It steps away, it stretches, it tests. And then, without so much as a backward glance, it walks out of the room. You try to follow, but your legs don't respond. You're in the mirrors now. And you're not alone. In traditional Maori lore, there is a rarely spoken belief in the shadows behind reflections. They're not spirits, not exactly, more like echoes that gather form from observation. The more you look at yourself, the more they become interested. Most are content to watch. So some are not. To prevent being taken, Maori families would perform a ritual before large gatherings, singing into reflective surfaces to drown out the echoes. It was a warning: this voice is mine, this face is mine, stay where you are. The scholars still wrestle with the idea. Was it a poetic metaphor, a cultural reminder of identity, or something much older, rooted in shared, quiet fear? Inside the mirror, your breath fogs the glass from the wrong side. The room around you is hollow, the sound slightly off-pitch. You call out, your voice echoes, but it's not your voice anymore. It has an edge to it, a mimicry slightly cracked. On the floor, the velvet pouch sits where you dropped it. You reach for it instinctively, but your hand passes through it. No grip, no weight. You're no longer bound to matters. Your reflection only now. And behind you, slowly, other figures begin to gather. They look like you, but they don't smile. They watch. The reflections around you don't speak. They don't need to. Their silence is heavier than words. Each one mirrors a version of you, slightly off, just enough to make your skin crawl even though your skin no longer truly exists. One stands with her head at an impossible tilt, like her neck gave up on being functional. Another blinks, but always out of sync. A third simply stares with eyes too wide, too glassy, as if she's still trying to understand what you used to mean. You realize something slowly in that creeping, slow burn way dread often arrives. They've all been here a long time. And now, so have you. In the folklore of early alpine communities, it was said that reflections could grow tired of waiting. that if they were stared at too long, especially in candlelight, they'd turn inward and begin to dream. And if those dreams were strong enough, they could rewrite the person they belonged to. That's why some households refuse to allow mirrors in bedrooms at all. The logic was simple. If your reflection dreamed of sorrow, you'd carry it. If it dreamed of death, you'd invite it. Historians still question the origin of this belief. Some claim it began with monks in remote mountain monasteries who reportedly fell ill after meditating near polished metal surfaces. Their symptoms: identity confusion, memory lapses, fear of their own faces. You press your hand against the invisible wall again, once glass, now merely the idea of glass. The outside world is still there, but muted, muffled. The you that replaced you has already moved past the sitting room. You catch glimpses through the mirror's surface. A hand reaching for a book you never owned. Feet walking paths your body doesn't remember. You pound on the barrier, but it doesn't make sound, only ripples. And then across from you, another reflection walks forward. She stares at you with pity, or is it warning? She mouths something. 3 syllables. Don't forget. You try to ask what she means. But your voice now echoes before you speak. The time in the mirror doesn't move forward so much as sideways. Moments slide past each other like cards being shuffled by a blind dealer. You remember what hasn't happened yet. You forget what's still unfolding. Outside, your replacement has taken your name, your voice, your casual gestures. It waves to a neighbor you don't recognize, and the neighbor waves back none the wiser. But inside here, things are aware of you. The other trapped reflections begin to move more fluidly now, not toward you, around you, orbiting like moths to a weak candle. Some of them weep without tears, some laugh soundlessly. One just hums the same broken melody again and again, her mouth moving like a music box wound too tight. In early Inuit tradition, it was believed that ice could trap the soul's reflection. That when looking into frozen lakes or snow-polished stones, part of your spirit stayed behind in the surface, frozen forever in its last emotion. Hunters were warned not to gaze too long into such reflections while alone, especially if they were grieving. One old story tells of a man who returned from the ice changed, slower, quieter. When he looked into mirrors afterward, he said he saw the water looking back. The scholars aren't sure if this tale reflects psychological trauma, spiritual belief, or simply the dangers of prolonged solitude. But mirror anxiety among Arctic communities persists even today. You walk through the mirrored world, though walk is the wrong word. You glide. Your feet make no sound, leave no mark. The walls here are made of surface, not substance, endless corridors of barely their rooms. Like a house sketched by someone who'd only heard of architecture secondhand. And every mirror you pass reflects something slightly wrong. A bed with too many pillows, a clock with no hands, a child's toy with teeth. Then you see something ahead. A staircase. But not like the one in the real house. This one spirals upward into shadow. Carved into its first step is a single word. On exit. The other reflections stop moving. One by one, they turn to face the stairs. Not with hope, or with fear. The staircase spirals like an unanswered question, tight and narrow, each step a whisper of old wood and worn stone, though you can feel no texture beneath your feet. You hesitate at its base, the word exit carved like a dare. The others behind you remain still as though gravity no longer applies to them, or maybe they simply know what waits above. While you ascend, each step feels longer than the last, like time itself is stretching. You count them just to anchor yourself. 24, 25, 20. Wait, wasn't it 25 already? Well, you try again. Each time you count, the number changes. In early Middle Eastern mirror lore, particularly among certain Bedouin oral traditions, there was a belief in the owl, a mirror that did not reflect but rather measured. It didn't show your appearance, it weighed your presence, your soul's rhythm, your rightness. If you looked into it and the reflection came late, it meant you had lost part of yourself. If it didn't come at all, you were already a ghost. No such mirror has ever been found, but descriptions of it appear in scattered poetry and travel journals of the 10th and 11th centuries, usually mentioned in the same breath as sandstorms, madness, and vanishing camels. You reach the top of the stairs or something like the top. The room before you feels undone. Walls half-formed, wallpaper bleeding into velvet curtains that don't connect to anything. A mirror hangs suspended in the air, not by hook or frame, but by a logic that doesn't belong to physics anymore. This mirror is different, taller, wider, and it reflects something unexpected. Not you. So them. Is everyone still in the house above, in the world of breath and clocks and gravity? Your reflection still pretending, living, watering a plant you've never owned. You feel a wave of sadness, strange and disconnected, like mourning a body you still remember but can no longer wear. In parts of Indonesia, particularly among the Batak people, there were tailies of spirit doors disguised as reflections. It was said these doors only opened once in a lifetime and only to those who had become weightless from grief. But if you stepped through and looked back, you'd see everyone who ever forgot you. And worse, you'd see how easily they did. The scholars aren't sure if these stories are metaphors for exile, death, or the loneliness of memory. But the mirrors used in those tailies were always described as warm to the touch. Just like the one before you now. You reach out and press your palm to the glass. It feels like skin. Then you hear breathing. Not yours. No, not theirs. Something older. And the mirror begins to pull again. But this time you resist, because now you understand the mirror is not a gate, it's a mouth. It doesn't lead anywhere, it consumes. You step back. The room responds. The walls begin to pulse, slow and steady, like a heartbeat trying to remember the rhythm of the living world. Mirrors bloom across the ceiling, dozens of them, each one reflecting a version of you that never made it back. One is laughing, but her eyes are hollow. Another is crying, though no tears fall. One kneels in prayer, fingers clasped in empty mimicry. Each of them caught mid-thought, mid-regret, mid-surrender. None of them's blink. In a quiet pocket of West African folklore, among certain communities, there are whisperings of the reflecting sleep, a condition where a person's dreams grow so vivid they begin to trap bits of waking life, small gestures, phrases, memories. Over time, the person becomes fragmented, half dream, half reflection, until one morning they do not wake at all. Their last dream is said to live on in any surface that remembers their face. Historians have long dismissed this as poetic allegory for memory loss or dementia, but even skeptics admit the phrasing in the stories is unsettlingly precise. You look back at the suspended mirror. It's no longer showing them. It's showing you again. But the version standing there now is worn, not older used. The smile is tight, frayed around the corners, the eyes dart, the hands fidget. It's your reflection. Trying to stay in place. Trying not to lose the role. And suddenly, you understand why the others didn't follow you up the stairs. The exit works, but it requires displacement. As if you go back, really go back, someone else has to come in. The mirror eats balance, and it's still hungry. You feel the choice gathering in your chest like a rising tide. Do you return? Or do you stay, watching the world forget you one blink at a time? You hover there, suspended in the mirror's indecision. It doesn't force you, it never has, that's the worst part, it asks. Quietly, patiently, like a door that never locks, just stands open, assuming you'll eventually walk through. The air in this room tastes like static and old photographs. You realize you're breathing memory, not oxygen. Every inhale brings back a moment that was never yours. Someone else's birthday cake, someone else's tears, a laugh you've never laughed echoing behind your eyes. That's what this place does. It's not a punishment. It's a substitution. In ancient Welsh myth, there's a tale of the shadow mirror. Said to be used only once in a lifetime, the mirror offered a single question. Do you want to be remembered or remembered correctly? Most couldn't answer. Those who tried often found their memories rewritten not by others, but by the mirror itself. In every version of the story, the user's name disappears from their own lineage. The scholars think it was likely a morality fable, one about pride or hubris or the fragility of legacy. But none of them can explain the existence of a silver-backed mirror housed in the cellar of an old Welsh chapel, inscribed with the same phrase, "Memory only matters if someone else wakes up with it." You press your forehead to the mirror's surface. It doesn't pull you in this time. Instead, it waits. A small voice, your voice maybe, asks gently, what if the version of you out there is doing it better? You watch as your replacement sips tea, answers a phone, smiles at something you'd have rolled your eyes at. The life it lives isn't perfect, but it's enough. And you're becoming soft around the edges. Your thoughts ripple like fog on glass. Names get slippery. The word for reflection drifts just out of reach. The longer you stay, the less you'll know what leaving meant. Then from somewhere deep inside the mirror, a whisper. A different whisper. I'll push back. The voice isn't loud. It arrives like a secret tucked into the edge of your mind, something someone once told you in a dream you didn't know you had. I'll push back. You take a step forward, and this time the mirror pulses as if surprised. The surface shifts, not drawing you in but resisting. Good, that means it noticed. You steady yourself and push both hands against the glass. It's not warm now. It's cold, hardening beneath your palms like ice, refusing to crack. The version of you on the other side finally falters. Their eyes widen just slightly. They've seen something they didn't expect. Are you? Still here, still remembering. In ancient Armenian superstition, it was said that mirrors could only be defeated by memory. That if you could recite the moment you first looked into a mirror, down to the smell in the air, the sound outside the window, you could reclaim yourself from anything that tried to copy you. But there was a cost. Once spoken, the memory was lost forever, given up to the mirror. Historians call it poetic nonsense. Still, in one preserved letter from 1813, a woman writes of her sister talking her way out of a glass and waking with no recollection of her own childhood. You press harder, the surface gives slightly. Ripples dance across the reflection like disturbed water. Your double places their hand on the glass too, trying to hold it, but their hand doesn't align with yours anymore. Because they're not you. Not exactly. And something inside the mirror knows it. You begin to speak, not loudly, not dramatically, just softly, steadily, the way you'd recite something sacred. As a memory, your first real ones. As the sun through the window, the pink plastic comb, the taste of milk and metal, a reflection that blinked when you did and nothing more. And as you say it, you feel it leave you. Is the moment gone cleanly, like pulling a thread that unravels perfectly? Well, the mirror begins to crack, not from damage, but from decision. Well, it has made its choices. And the surface opens, not inward, but outward. You fall forward, and this time you land. You land not with a crash, but with a hush, as if the world itself doesn't want to startle you. The floor beneath you is wood again, solid, slightly dusty. You feel gravity. You hear the quiet tick of a distant clock, real time, not the echoing rhythm of. You exhale, and it leaves your body instead of bouncing around inside your chest like a moth in a jar. So you're back. But not everything is as it was. The mirror in front of you is cracked, its surface split into 5 long fractures like fingers pulling away from your departure. Your reflection appears finally tired, colorless, but yours. The eyes match, the hesitation matches, the wariness too. You're you against. Mostly. In parts of eastern Finland, there's a peculiar about a woman who traveled through silver to retrieve her name. When she returned, people said she acted differently, more cautious, less curious. But the story doesn't end there. They say she began to collect all the mirrors in the village, turning them backward against the walls, not breaking them, not hiding them, just denying them the right to watch. When asked why, she said only, they know too much. Historians treat this tale as symbolic, a metaphor for trauma, for caution, for growing old and seeing too clearly. But you're standing in a room full of mirrors now, and none of them feel neutral anymore. You reach out to cover the nearest one with the edge of a dusty sheet. It fights back, ever so slightly. Static clings to your fingers, but the cloth falls. The glass disappears beneath a soft veil of disuse. One downs. You make your way through the house, methodical, quiet. The hand mirror upstairs is flipped face down. The hallway mirror is covered. The cabinet glass receives a thick lace doily that dulls its cold shine. Each time you veil a surface, something eases in your chest. A knot you didn't know was there begins to loosen. Until you reach the mantle mirror. The one that started this all. And you freeze. It's already covered. Not by your hand, but by someone else's. The cloth is too clean, too white, as if it hasn't aged with the house, as if it was placed just moments ago. You approach slowly, footsteps padding softly across the floor. The room is quiet but not empty, the kind of not empty that makes you hesitate before turning around. You don't. Instead, you stare at the draped mirror and say nothing. In old Persian mysticism, there's a concept called the mirror soul. It was believed that every person has a reflective double in the unseen world. If by accident or ritual the two ever collide, the result wasn't madness. It was mirroring. The soul in our world begins to copy its twin's movements until their lives are no longer distinct. There are records of mystics sealing mirrors with wax, not to trap spirits, but to stop their own from bleeding out. You reach out gently and lift the cloth at one corner. And see nothing. It's not even the room behind you, not even shadow. The glass is black. It's utterly, completely black. You let the cloth drop again. The mirror hums beneath the covering, a low, slow note like an animal breathing in its sleep. It's not over. And now you realize you didn't just come back, you came through. You walk to the cabinet where you found the shard, open the drawer beneath the velvet pouch. It's empty now. No shard. No pouch. Only a note. Written in your handwriting, though you've never written it. Do not let it name you. You read it twice, then press it flat against the cabinet's wood. It doesn't explain much. But it says enough. You return to the mantle mirror not to uncover it, but to press your hand against the fabric covering its glass. It's warm again. A low voice, not yours, not spoken, rises in your mind. Not all who leave reflections come back the same. You don't reply. You just walk away. This time, the mirror doesn't follow. You leave the sitting room slowly, like stepping out of someone else's memory. The house feels lighter now. Not cheerful, not safe, just less coiled. As though whatever watched you before has settled down again, retreating into silence like a snake curling beneath the floorboards. You make your way back upstairs, passing the half-open cabinet, the dormant staircase, and the long hallway where portraits still line the walls. Their eyes don't follow you this time, or maybe you've simply stopped checking. In some corners of rural Ireland, especially near coastal villages, there was a practice known as turning the face. It involved rotating portrait paintings inward against the wall during certain storms, especially when someone in the house had recently passed. Not because the dead might return, but because their reflections might try to stay. The belief was that grief softened the boundaries between what's real and what's reflected, and some memories were better left. You pause in front of a small framed photo outside what must have once been a nursery. It's old, black and white, badly faded. A woman stares stiffly ahead, a baby in her lap, but her eyes are unfocused, as if watching something behind the camera. You could swear the photo is new since you last walked this hall, but that's impossible. Historians still argue whether this belief in storm mirrors was tied to seasonal affective disorders or ancient rites of death and remembrance. But even now, some families still turn their pictures inward during thunder. Just in case the memories inside start watching back. You push open the door to the nursery. The room is cold but undisturbed. A child's blanket rests in the crib, yellowed with age. A mobile hangs limp above it, wooden stars spinning with the slow certainty of forgotten lullabies. And in the corner, face up on a shelf, is another mirror. A small one, round, framed in dull brass. It's a smiling, not reflecting a smile. A smiling. A small crack curves upward along the bottom edge, twisting the glass just enough to suggest expression. While you stare at it, Lid stares back, and somewhere downstairs, you hear the soft creak of a door closing itself. The smile in the mirror never wavers. It's not grotesque, not overt, just wrong, a hair too high. A curve that suggests something behind it is amused, not kind. You take a careful step forward and the brass-framed mirror trembles faintly, like a spider anticipating the vibration of its web. You don't look directly into it, you watch it. Peripheral, distant, like a predator you're pretending isn't in the room. In pre-Columbian cultures, obsidian mirrors were revered and feared as instruments of prophecy. They believed such mirrors could see not only through time, but into the hidden corners of the self. Shamans used them in rituals to speak with gods or with something pretending to be one. It was said that if the mirror smiled back at you, you weren't the one doing the looking anymore. One surviving obsidian disc in a Mexico City museum is said to have gone missing for 27 hours during a solar eclipse. When it was found again, it had moved 6 inches, and its reflection, according to the curator's journal, did not show the sailing. Historians chalk it up to light distortion, poor cataloging, or stress hallucinations. But the curator resigned 2 days later. No reason given. You slowly pick up the brass mirror. It's warm, not from the room, from within. You know better than to speak to it. Instead, you do something older. Stranger, you carry it downstairs. One step at a time. Back into the sitting room. Back to the covered mantel mirrors. The cloth over it stirs as you enter, like it feels the other one approaching. You don't uncover it. You simply place the brass mirror in front of it, face to face, reflection to reflection. And you step away. Because sometimes the only way to cage a thing is to let it look at itself. The cloth over the large mirror tightens slightly, as though drawn inward by invisible breath. And then both mirrors go still. No humming, no smiling, just waiting. You sit in the far corner of the room, your back against the wall, the mirrors positioned like chess pieces too clever for either player. There's a stillness now, a different kind. Not the uneasy quiet of before, but the kind of hush that settles over something sealed, like a jar closed tightly, like a wound stitched shut with thread neither silver nor silk, but watchfulness. Nothing moves. The brass mirror no longer smiles. Its crack has straightened, unnaturally so, like someone ironed emotion out of it. The mantel mirror's cloth no longer stirs. They seem satisfied with each other. You're preoccupied. You don't speak. You barely breathe. In a strange little village on the coast of Malta, there's a superstition older than its churches. When 2 mirrors face each other, it's called the corridor. Locals believe the reflections bouncing endlessly between the glass surfaces form a path, a tunnel too thin for people, but just wide enough for other things to slip through. To prevent anything from entering or exiting, residents would place a candle between the mirrors and let it burn overnight. If the flame flickered, they said the corridor had opened. If it went out completely, well, you were supposed to leave the house by dawn and never return. The scholars have written this off as apotropaic storytelling. But in 1954, a single house inn was condemned after a family was found sleeping, but couldn't be woken. Every mirror in the home had been removed by unseen hands. You look at the brass mirror again. Or for a flicker of a second, just a flicker, you think you see the candle there. A stubby white taper reflected in its center, not lit, not present, just implied. The cloth on the mantel mirror tightens once more, then slackens. The breath has left it, and something else remains. You don't know what it is, but it knows you let it stay. You rise to your feet. You don't look back. You don't need to anymore. You walk through the house with the quiet reverence of someone who has just stepped out of a church or a grave. Every floorboard, every curtain, every whispering draft feels like it's giving you permission to leave. Not urging, not forcing, just agreeing. You pass by the hallway mirror, still veiled, still humming very faintly like an old refrigerator clinging to one last current of energy. You nod to it out of instinct or politeness. It does not respond. In the bedroom, the shard is gone from the floor. The velvet pouch has vanished, too. The cabinet door swings open as you walk past it, just once, just wide enough for you to see nothing's inside anymore. A clean, like something packed up and moved on. In the southern Balkans, there's a lesser-known burial tradition. When someone died in a home, their image was painted on a small wooden disc, which was then placed in a sealed box with a mirror cracked across the center. It wasn't for remembrance. It was for containment. The belief was that grief echoes through glass, and the only way to trap it is to bind the memory with a false reflection. The box was then buried at a crossroads. The scholars disagree on the symbolism. Some say it's about choices in the afterlife. Others argue it was simply about giving lost souls nowhere to go but down. But all versions of the tale agree on one thing. If the mirror ever healed, you were supposed to dig the box up and burn it before it remembered your name. You reach the front door now, your hand on the knob. The house does not resist you. Outside, the world waits, ordinary, uneventful, unknowing. But in your pocket, something shifts. Not the shard, not the pouch. A folded scrap of parchment you don't recall placing there. It's blank. Until slowly, letters begin to etch themselves across its surface, like ink soaking up through fabric. Just one phrase. Close every door behind you. You turn the knob and step into the light. The sunlight doesn't sting, but it surprises you. After so much time in a world of shadows and glass, the real world looks almost theatrical. Blue sky, uneven pavement, a breeze that doesn't whisper any secrets. The kind of day people describe as perfect without noticing its edges. You stand just outside the house for a long moment. Behind you, the door closes with a gentle click. No wind, no push, no dramatics, just finality. It's over. Or at least the house wants you to believe that. You unfold the parchment again. The ink is gone. In early Japanese mirror lore, especially during the period, it was said that some messages could be given not in writing but in reflection. Letters etched with invisible strokes, only visible when held before a mirror at sunset. These were not ordinary correspondences. They were warnings, instructions, farewells that couldn't be trusted to ink alone. According to one fragmented tale, a woman received such a letter from her sister who'd vanished years before. She held it to the mirror at dusk and saw the words, "Don't trust the smile." She turned to ask what it meant, and her own reflection answered before she could speak. Historians consider this a ghost story, but the detail of the mirror letter is accurate. Several examples are preserved in Kyoto's Calligraphy Museum, though no one has ever dared reflect them. You reach into your pocket again. Your fingers brush something metallic. You pull it out slowly. A key. Old iron and cold, not from temperature but from disuse. You didn't bring this with you. And yet here it is. Tied to the base is a ribbon faded red and a tag with looping black script. It reads, for when it finds you again. You turn the key over in your hand, but there's no address, no number, just that weighty kind of promise old things make. You don't put it back in your pockets. You tuck it in the deepest corner of your bag. Then you walk. And as you pass windows and glass storefronts, you don't look at your reflection. Not once. You check into a small hotel, the kind where the floors creak more from personality than age and the key is still an actual key, not a card. Room 206. The clerk smiles politely, eyes lingering a second too long, but in a human way, not a mirrored one. Still, you catch yourself checking, watching. The elevator has a mirrored wall. You step in, turn around, and face the door. The way people do when they don't want to see who might be standing behind them. Upstairs, the room is small but clean. One bed, one lamp, one mirror above the desk. You toss your bag on the bed and immediately drape your jacket over the mirror. Old habits, you tell yourself, but your voice is thin, weak around the edges. In 1923, a traveling salesman in upstate New York began writing to local newspapers about the Mirror Man. According to his letters, he saw the same man's face in every mirror in every room he stayed in across 8 counties. The man never moved, never spoke, he just watched. The salesman eventually stopped writing. But one of his final notes included a diagram of a small iron key with a red ribbon. The scholars argue that the salesman had a nervous breakdown, likely due to isolation. Others believe he simply created a myth to explain the peculiar loneliness of roadside motels and unfamiliar bathrooms. But the drawing of the key remains archived in a museum's folklore collection. It matches yours exactly. You sit on the edge of the bed and turn on the lamp. The light is soft and warm, comforting even. The mirror across the room remains covered. But every now and then the jacket twitches, not visibly, not dramatically. Just enough to make you wonder if it's being nudged. Or from the inside. Sleep doesn't come easily. You lie there, half wrapped in the hotel's thin blanket, watching the faint outline of your jacket against the mirror across the room. Every now and then, headlights from the street below sweep past, illuminating the fabric like a curtain in a breathless play. The room never feels quite dark, only dim, as though the darkness is being held back. You turn to face the wall, pretending you don't feel watched. In an old Bedouin belief, there's a concept called Bi'al, the echoing gaze. It's the idea that a reflection once seen might continue looking after you've turned away. That it stores your image and continues to study it, waiting for its chance to call something back through the memory of your face. This is why in some desert tribes, travelers carried polished stones, not to see themselves but to distract reflections. The idea being, if the mirror watched the stone long enough, it might forget you altogether. You reach over and grab your phone, not to scroll, but to use as a poor man's talisman. You place it on the nightstand, screen facing the mirror, as if it might keep whatever's behind the glass entertained. No, nothing happens. Of course it doesn't. Oh, and yet, I'll use it up. I'll pull the jacket from the mirrors. Just for a second. Your reflection is there. A tired pales reels. And then blink. It is. You sit frozen as the glass clouds faintly, like breath against winter. Then words begin to appear. Not carved, not fogged. Written. Just three. You left me. The words linger only a moment before fading, as if they were never meant to be seen, only felt. You replace the jacket. Lie back down. And wonder who exactly wrote them. Was it the version of you escaped? Or the version of you that escaped you? Morning arrives reluctantly. Gray light filters through the curtains, the kind that doesn't wake you so much as remind you you're still alive. The mirror is quiet, covered, you don't check beneath the jacket. You just avoid. You shower, you dress, you pack the key. There's no note under the door, no mark on the mirror, no sign of haunting, really, just that persistent sense of being unfinished. As you check out, the clerk gives you a small envelope. Someone left this for you, they say, without explanation. You nod, though you don't know who someone could possibly be. In early 18th century France, there was a brief surge in what were known as mirror messengers. These were small handwritten notes left on vanity tables or pinned to washroom mirrors in inns, and most were anonymous. Some were poems, others were confessions, and a few, very few, were warnings. One such note, preserved in a private collection, simply reads, "Your reflection lied last night." The scholars have no consensus on whether this was the beginning of a literary tradition or a reflection, no pun intended, of widespread paranoia following years of superstition and plague. You open the envelope. Inside is a scrap of paper, yellowed at the edges, inked in the same script as the tag tied to your key. There's one more. That's it. No address, no context. But your spine understands before your brain does. This isn't over. It never was. The world is full of mirrors. Hotel rooms, gas stations, elevators, dressing rooms, quiet lakes on windless nights. You can't avoid them all. But you can be ready. You tuck the note into your coat, and this time, as you walk past the front window, you glance at your reflection. It matches you. Completely. Almost too completely. And for the first time, you wonder if it's you standing here looking in. Who exactly is looking back? You spend the next few days avoiding mirrors as if they owe you money. You eat facing the wall in diners. You use your phone's front camera sparingly. You check your teeth with a spoon. And when you pass a reflective storefront, you glance down, not out. People probably think you're shy. But you're just being careful. Because ever since that note, there's one more you've felt the quiet press of something at your back. Not a presence. Not quite, just a possibility. Like a door you thought you locked that keeps showing up open in your dreams. You start traveling light, a single bag, a notebook, and the key. You don't know what it opens yet, but you will. In ancient Mongolian funeral practices, it was customary to remove all reflective surfaces from a yurt the moment someone died, not for the dead's sake, but for the living. They believed that death could use reflections as shortcuts, tunnels, temptations. A grieving person might look into a mirror and see the loved one smiling back. But it wouldn't be them. And if you answered, the deal was done. You never spoke to your reflection after the night in the hotel, not once. But you've started to notice things. Its shoulders settle faster, its smile lasts longer, it doesn't twitch when you do. You catch it lagging once in a metal elevator door. Just half a beat. But it was enough. Historians still argue whether these cultural beliefs were just coping mechanisms, ways to give grief a shape, a rule, a name, but others suggest they were survival systems, codes to protect memory from intrusion. You begin to circle towns on your map. Places with old buildings, old mirrors, old stories. You ask for keys that don't go to rooms anymore. One shopkeeper hands you a ring of tarnished brass keys. You sort through them carefully until one matches yours. It's small, it's simple, stamped with a symbol you haven't seen since the house. A spiral split down the middle. You ask what it opens. The shopkeeper shrugs. A basement made of it. And smiles, but doesn't reflect. You stare at the key and that spiral, split down the middle like a closed eye half remembering how to blink. It's the same symbol etched into the wood beneath the cabinet hinge in that first house. The one that hummed when you breathed too close. You trace it now with your thumb, feeling its shape like a bruise you can't explain to anyone. The shopkeeper watches you with that tight, neutral smile of someone who knows exactly what they just handed you, but won't be going anywhere near what it unlocks. You leave the shop. The town is small, the kind of place that feels like it's waiting for a reason to disappear entirely. You pass a shuttered library, a chapel with ivy growing through the doorframe, and a row of homes that seem offended by the idea of new paint. The sky is a heavy gray, not stormy, just undecided. You find the building the key belongs to with unsettling ease. An old boarding house, long abandoned. The kind of structure that used to smell like biscuits and now just smells like wet wood and sighing wallpaper. There's a narrow staircase at the side. Stone steps leading downward, too even to be natural. The door at the bottom is wood, iron-banded, and gently pulsing in the light like it remembers being opened. You insert the key. It turns, but doesn't unlock. Instead, the door inhales. You feel it, not in the hinges, not in the floor, but in your bones. It breathes you in. Then opens itself. In 15th century Poland, there was a quiet belief, almost never written down, in soul cellars. Not crypts, not tombs. Basements specifically constructed with mirrored walls and stone floors meant to trap the reflections of the newly dead. The body would be buried above, but the echo stayed sealed below, in a room that reflected itself endlessly into nothingness. There are no official records of their construction, only whispered accounts and half-legends told in candlelight. But you know one thing the moment you step inside. This is one of them. The basement is cool and silent. Mirrors line the walls, warped with age, most are cracked, none are covered, and all of them show something. Not you. Not clearly. Your shadows. All movements. Old decisions that didn't quite stick. One mirror flickers, then stills. It shows a version of you seated at a desk, writing a note with shaking hands. Another shows you asleep. It's in a room you've never entered. And then, one shows your reflection. Matching you. Exactly. Until it winks. Are you freezes? The mirror that winked doesn't flicker again. It just sits there. Innocent, silent, but the damage is done. You feel your insides coil, like your ribs are trying to remember how to protect something that's already been let out. You don't move closer. That would feel like an answer. Instead, you step sideways, watching for tricks, lagging gestures, misaligned limbs. The other mirrors remain passive, though they seem brighter now, like the glass is awake. There's a chair in the center of the room. Of course there is. It's a perfect circle of mirror-lined walls, and in the middle, just waiting for you, a wooden chair facing nothing and everything at once. You know the way one knows thunder is coming, that if you sit in it, something will look back. In a 17th century Moravian grimoire, rarely translated and never officially published, there's a chapter labeled Only the Eighth Reflection. It describes a ritual involving 7 mirrors and 1 participant. You sit at the center, surrounded, you say nothing, you wait. And the 8th reflection, the one that doesn't belong to any physical mirror, will appear. The warning scrawled into the margins: do not answer its question. Will you step toward the chair? Not because you want to. Well, because you have to. All you said. The mirrors do not shimmer, they do not hum. But slowly, one by one, they begin to align. The reflections correct themselves. They straighten, polish. You appear in each of them now. Except one. The mirror across from you remains blank. Not dark. A blank. A silence fills the room, the kind that only happens in the seconds before choice. Then in the empty mirror, something takes form. It's you. Not quite. The smile is a little too eager. The eyes a little too sorry. And it opens its mouth and asks, do you remember what you gave up? You don't answer. You can't. Because whatever voice is about to leave your mouth doesn't feel like yours. It perches on your tongue, patient, persuasive. Like a thought someone slipped into your pocket when you weren't looking. The not you in the mirror tilts its head, not in confusion. In calculation. Then it asks again. Do you remember what you gave up? Its voice is warm, comforting, too comforting. Like hearing a lullaby from someone who's never sung before but somehow knows the exact rhythm of your childhood. You grip the arms of the chair until your knuckles ache. In Zoroastrian belief, there's an ancient notion of reflections, false versions of the self that live in polished metal and return during moments of weakness. They don't seek possession, they seek permission. All they need is one answer. One yes, one I remember. And then they become the one who remembers. Historians debate whether this was a metaphor for temptation, pride, or a more literal fear of losing selfhood in ritual spaces. The thing in the mirror smiles again. This time it looks relieved. Because it thinks you're going to answer. But you do something different. You close your eyes and breathe. One breath. Two. You remember the cloth over the mantel mirrors. You remember the smiling crack on the brass one. You remember the handprint that wasn't yours. You remember the staircase that wasn't real, and the figure in the reflection who moved half a second too slow. You remember the shard, and how it pulsed like a second heart. You open your eyes. The mirror is now showing only the chair. Empty, as it has forgotten you. You made it forget you. The room exhales. You stand. The mirrors remain still. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, your reflection follows you perfectly. Like it remembers its place. You leave the mirror room with slow, steady steps, not out of fear but reverence, like walking away from something ancient that spared you because you didn't look too long or speak too loud. The door doesn't slam behind you. It just closes, softly, like a chapter ending. Above ground, the daylight feels like a miracle you forgot how to want. The town hasn't changed. Same crooked sidewalks, same chipped brick buildings, but everything looks clearer, sharper, like someone adjusted the contrast on the world. You breathe in deep, real air. It smells of dust and pine and the faintest hint of something old finally being allowed to rest. In your bag, the iron key no longer feels warm, just metal now, dull, familiar duns. You toss it into a creek at the edge of town without a second thought. No splash, just a gentle pull downward. In ancient Sumerian tradition, the dead were buried with echo tokens, small inscribed items meant to confuse the soul into thinking it had already returned to the underworld. It was believed that if you carried one too long, your reflection would stop recognizing you, and that when that happened, your name would stop belonging to your body. No one knows what happened to the people who forgot themselves, only that their reflections stayed behind. The scholars still wonder whether those traditions were spiritual, symbolic, or born from some buried truth we've since chosen to forget. But as you walk through the trees, feeling the sun on your skin, you know one thing for certain. You never want to see your reflection again when you're not expecting it. And you never want to be expected. Ever again. The sky softens above you now, stretching into late afternoon. The kind of hour where light turns gold and the world leans just slightly into sleep. The path beneath your feet is firm, the leaves barely stir, and there's no sound but the low hush of the wind moving like a memory through the trees. You walk slowly not because you're tired, but because the world finally lets you. You pass no mirrors, no windows, just sky and earth, and the gentle rhythm of your own breath sinking back into a body that no longer feels borrowed. As everything behind you grows quieter with each step. And for the first time in too long, you're not waiting for your reflection to catch up. It's resting now, somewhere behind the glass. You may never know what truly tried to take your place, or how many names it's worn before yours. But you do know this, it's watching someone else now. Not you. You closed the door behind you. And that door listens. So take a deep breath, traveler. You're back where breath counts again. The mirrors have quieted. Your shadow is yours once more. Let your eyelids grow heavy. Let the questions slip. And if a dream comes, let it pass like clouds over still water, unremembered. Tonight you sleep without glass. Well, without names. Well, without echoes. Only silence. And the steady, peaceful rhythm of a world that no longer needs to watch.